let's start a little bit with talking about your weekend with Texas A&M before we get into all the ACC flavor that's going to take up most of the show. You got on Friday, right? It was Friday that you got to watch the national runners up from last season. They've got a ton of talent coming back. They've got a ton of talent, new talent that's come in there. Talk to me about what you saw and how they looked.
First off, the 12th man for Texas A&M was just insane. It looked like a weekend series all around. Obviously, there's a ton of new guys around. There's a ton of new faces. There's a few guys that are going to be in the lineup going forward that didn't get a chance to play. Jace Lavalette had a nagging injury. Gavin Grahovic has a hip injury that he's going to be fine for spring. And then Hayden Schott, who is going to probably be penciled in as the DH, tore his ACL. So they went with a little bit different of a lineup. Caden Sorrell moved into center field. George, the transfer from Alabama State, Jamal George, he played one inning at shortstop before moving out to right field. And then Texas Tech transfer Gavin Cash was out in left field. That was really kind of the one thing for Texas A&M that you really had a lot of question marks about. They have about 5 or 6 guys that you think would play first base. So finding spots for them, I think, is going to be a little bit of a challenge. Gavin Cash being in left, I think, is a clear indication that he's probably going to sit out there. Again, it's an inter-squad scrimmage where Caden Sorrell moves into center. Jace Lavalette played right field as a freshman, moved over to center field when they got Braden Montgomery in right field. But when Braden Montgomery went down, they moved him back to right. So it'll be interesting to see if they put Sorrell in center field. I think he is athletic enough to play that position, and move Jace Lavalette over to right field. Interesting to see kind of what they do from there. The big storyline for me was Caden Kent. He played second base last year for Texas A&M as Ali Camarillo was the shortstop. Was he going to be athletic enough to be a shortstop? You knew the bat was going to play. And early on, he made a tremendous play where they were going up the middle on a double play, threw and touched the bag and threw the ball in one motion. He looked really tremendous there. Gavin Cash, I think, was another one that really impressed me. He had good contact. He played left field really good. Blake Binderup hit 2 home runs, both of them just absolute moonshots. The first one was into the rack, and the second one cleared the scoreboard as well. Caden Sorrell, who I mentioned, played center field. He looked tremendous hitting the ball. It looks like he's added about 5 to 10 pounds of just pure muscle. His swing looks really good. He had a backside bomb, and then he was about 3 feet from a home run as he was able to leg out the triple. People kind of forget that he is athletic as he is and that he is fast enough to leg out those triples. And in turn, I think he's fast enough to play center field. I think the one thing that was the most important for me was, again, Jamal George. He's the guy that is really going to be an X factor for A&M because they really don't have a ton of fast guys. Like I mentioned, they have a lot of bigger guys. They're a big team. If Jamal George can find his way into this lineup, whether it be at shortstop, whether it be in the outfield, whether it be at second base, I think that there's going to be a tremendous talent because, again, he just kind of has an infectious personality. He's a very spark plug type of player that if A&M can find a spot for him, I think that they're going to be very dangerous. I would say the biggest surprise for me was Sawyer Farr starting at second base. He played all of the quote-unquote first game at second base. He looked really good fielding the ball. He had a really nice pick from Bear Harrison to quote-unquote get a 4th out. The bat, I think, is going to come as he steps up and plays a little bit better. At times, he kind of did look like he was in high school about 6 months ago. But again, and Imani and I were talking about it backstage as he kind of comes in. A&M is a big team. Wyatt Hensler's a big guy, the pin transfer. He had 1 for 3 with a strikeout. Again, they scored 7 runs without recording an out. And again, it's Houston Christian. You want to take it with kind of a grain of salt. But they really kind of peppered the ball all around the field. Wyatt Hensler is a big guy. Gavin Cash is another guy that's a quote-unquote guy. Blake Binderup's a big guy. Sawyer Farr, I think, is over 6'3" as well. Mike Berkovic, the transfer from the MEAAC conference, he's another kind of big guy. And then Bear Harrison, he's definitely not the athletic one that we saw with Sorrell. So it's going to be kind of a different brand of catcher for Texas A&M. But I think he's going to be the one that seems to be penciled in as the starter, as Galloway was another guy that was kind of vying for the catching position. He played all 12 innings of the inter-squad. And as I kind of end it here, the pitching, I think, was tremendous for Texas A&M. Yes, it was a little bit bigger of a zone for a fall ball standpoint. You can tell that the ump really wanted guys to kind of get their swings in. Only had the one run allowed. They struck out 18 over 12 innings of work. So the pitching, I think, is going to be pretty similar to what we saw last year. It's going to be a lot of new guys kind of working their way in. But again, I mean, they were pounding the zone all night. That Monty, I guess fall ball notes are over. If you have
That's all you had? Oh man. Well, I completely forgot about Gavin Cash until you mentioned him, and I was like, oh, okay, that's. And then you just kept mentioning names. I was like, all right. I don't know how they're going to figure out 9 guys from that, but it sounds like it's going to be fun to talk Texas A&M baseball once you get started.
It really is, modern college baseball. They have a ton of guys. And again, I've been around a ton of SEC programs. I think they have about 12 to 14 guys that could start at the average SEC team. And it really is going to be a fight at the bat rack every single week. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that's going to have to be earned. Again, honestly, we know that Gavin Grahovic's going to play. We know that Jace Lavallette's going to play. We know that Caden Kent's going to play. But it really feels like every single position there is a spot open just because there's so many kind of different puzzle pieces that they're going to try and fit in. And again, Wyatt Hensler was a guy that you probably thought was just going to be stuck at first base. He can play third base. And again, Gavin Grahovic was a guy that you think, okay, maybe he's going to be married to that third base. He played left field at times last year in the College World Series. So, I mean, they have a ton of versatility. They have a ton of athleticism. They have a ton of guys that can play different positions. So it really is going to be interesting to see kind of how Coach Early manages this lineup.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of teams in the SEC that are in similar. Well, not a lot. It's Tennessee and A&M and LSU maybe that are really.
Arkansas has a ton of talent too. If you want to.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how those fill out there in the SEC.